Hi guys, it is the second week of what we're May, I think May, and we're joining you guys here with the Microsoft 365 Pulse. So I'm with Tom and Tamara. Jen is actually really busy doing all sorts of wonderful things this week, so you're just stuck with the three of us. Normally that would mean a testosterone-filled meeting, but now we are blessed with Tamara, so we will not be doing that. But as a whole, guys, we have a lot of wonderful things to talk about. The list that we, sometimes provide in a spreadsheet is actually ginormous this week. It seems like they were doing some cleanup on the actual launch section. So we're going to talk about in development. We're going to talk about rolling out, and we'll mention a couple things in launch, but we're not going to go over nearly everything. But without further ado, we'll go ahead and get into it and talk about some of the cool things we have coming. So Tamara, if you want to kick us off with anything you found particularly intriguing in the in development section.
Sure. I was looking at the multi-window meeting and calling experience for Microsoft Teams. It means that users will have the ability to pop out meetings and calling into separate windows to help them optimize their workflow. And these experiences can be turned on directly within Teams, both for the PC and the Mac client. So I'm really looking forward to this because I just spent an awful lot of time chasing around a couple different things while I was in a meeting and I kept losing them. So being able to pop up these meetings into separate windows, I think is going to be a great development.
Yeah,
We've
100%. Go ahead, Tom.
I was going to say we've in our particular group, Teams is getting a lot of attention at work. And this is one of the ones that people are consistently asking about, in addition to the Brady Bunch / Hollywood Squares layout and all these kind of things,
Yeah.
which hopefully will show up so we can have people talk about other stuff rather than just those.
Well, it's one of those things. If you've embraced Teams and have files and structures and stuff in there, and then you're in a meeting, like it's really tedious to click away from the meeting to go and try to find this stuff. Then you have to come back to where the meeting was that you could see people on video. So just being able to like pop out the video to the side while you dig in your Teams for other stuff, I think just makes it more user friendly, less, oh god, what's happening, I can't see people, stuff like that. When we're having conversations, we all like looking at each other and stuff like that if you have video calls on. So being able to do that and dig around in Teams is definitely a good thing. Tom, you want to take anything next?
Sure. At a very high level, I'm just going to mention that apparently Visio and Project got a lot of love this particular week. So they talk about, and I will preface all this by don't use Visio, don't use Project. So this is definitely a let me tell you what the map says. But they're talking about having custom fields at the task level for Project, which would be nice, I guess, if you're a heavy duty project user. New templates for entity relationship diagrams, ERDs, are now available for Visio on the web. Project and roadmap app in Microsoft Teams, you're now going to be able to bring that in there and be able to use those. Access Visio data visualizer add-in templates in Excel's Backstage view and the Visio data visualizer, that's hard to say, add-in for Excel is now generally available. In addition, export your Visio diagrams as images in download as image and video for the web. Single sign-on enabled for the Visio data visualizer add-in, as if I got it right the second time too. Oh, and look, I get to do it a third time. Visio data visualizer add-in for Excel now available in multiple languages. So if you're into visual, now I screw up just the one word. If you're into Visio, and you're into the data visualizer aspect of working with that in Excel, you got lots of things to look at this month. With that, I'm going to go on to something else that I can actually pronounce on a regular basis. They've made some changes that were just announced really today, and that is changes to the channel names that you see in terms of what's coming out to you on a regular basis. And in addition, what they will set people's default channel. So by channels, we mean when you get your changes pushed out to you, you had your targeted, you had your regular monthly, you had your semi-annual. Well, now what's basically going on is the channel names have changed where semi-annual becomes semi-annual enterprise channel, semi-annual channel targeted becomes semi-annual enterprise channel preview, monthly channel standard becomes current channel, and monthly channel targeted becomes current channel preview. And then they've got a new one called monthly enterprise channel, which is what all new subscribers or clients, tenants, after like June, sometime in June, I think, they're going to be set to this new one. And the real difference between that and what we currently have in terms of monthly releases, the monthly releases that they normally had were like, yeah, you're going to get it sometime this month. Where now the monthly enterprise channel and the other enterprise channels, those are going to be on set dates. So I believe the monthly enterprise channel is going on Patch Tuesday, I believe. And so you can always know that, hey, on this date each month, I'm going to be getting the changes. And then from an enterprise perspective, that gives you a much better chance of being able to plan what's going on, schedule it, make sure everything's going, instead of just having it crop up one morning and people are like, everything changed, what happened? Well, these new channels and the way that they're scheduled are going to give you a much better chance. And of course, they want everybody to go to monthly enterprise channel, so everybody gets the stuff on a regular basis instead of waiting for the semi-annual. But keep in mind that your target names or your channel names are going to change. This is the, used to be this, used to be that type thing, and that you're going to see this new monthly enterprise channel, which may affect you if you're a new tenant, or if you want to say, hey, I want to get everything on Patch Tuesday every month, just like I get my regular patches. You can plan for it and go with it on your whole Microsoft 365 tenant now. So that's a good thing.
Tamara, you have anything else you wanted to talk about in development?
I like the Office Advanced Message Encryption for the government clouds. It's finally coming out to the government. Yay, us. And it allows you to configure the policies to identify sensitive information types like PII, financial, or the health IDs, or you can even use keywords to enhance the protection. And then once that's configured, you can pair it with policies with the custom branded email templates, and then add an expiration date for extra controls of emails that fit the policies. So I think it's something that people in the government cloud are really going to be excited about. I think it's about time it got there.
Yeah, so that will be coming in the future, obviously, which would be nice. They have regular message encryption that's available in the government cloud, but the advanced is definitely a easier functionality. So that'll be nice to see it actually fully rolling out. There's one I kind of could still mention too, but Tom, I want to check if there's anything else for you, just because I know you're not going to talk about this one. So
I may surprise you one of these days and get really geeky on you. One of the things, actually, the two kind of link together for Outlook on the web. Text predictions are being worked on. So if you're a Gmail user, a lot of times you're in there and you're typing away and you'll go, tomorrow, and it gives you basically tomorrow is fine. As a type ahead, you hit tab and you get the whole sentence there. Basically, Outlook is going to start doing the same type of thing, and that's going to be on the web version of Outlook. Also, suggested replies, which is out there right now.
Yeah.
But they're also expanding that to customers in Europe. So you'll get support for French and Italian languages. So if that's your language of choice and that's what you're dealing with, shortly you'll be able to get those suggested replies in the language that makes sense for you. So I thought that was good. Now I'm completely done with my in-development stuff. So geek out there, Adam.
Yeah, no, well, I was actually planning on talking about. Oh, go ahead, Tamara.
Yeah, I'm like, yeah, go ahead, Adam. And then I've got two that kind of tie together that I want to talk about after you're done.
Sure. I was actually going to talk about the channel releases. I am a little shocked you talked about that, Tom, but it's all
Thank you.
Okay. I was just going to mention they're basically updating or planning on updating the Exchange Hybrid Configuration Wizard to basically support full hybrids to 2 or more tenants. Without getting too nerdy into this, a hybrid Exchange server is something that has a lot of viability in an Office 365 deployment. Actually, when I was still at my old job and dealing a ton with migrations, our default posture was almost to recommend a hybrid server. There's just a lot of benefits to having it for both object management as far as how you're handling your users, but also some practical stuff as far as like sending emails that you maybe don't want to have to authenticate with, or if you have scanners and printers and stuff like that. But it's always been a one-to-one model, similar to what you do with Azure AD. So we're basically trying to develop it. Say you're a really large company and you're coming from like a a large on-prem deployment and you're going into 365, but you decide, okay, well, we don't want absolutely everyone in the same tenant in 365. We want some warehousing there, put some sections, which I've done for a couple of my larger enterprise customers in the past. You had to actually deploy separate Exchange instances, install them into your on-premise just to do this long term. So now they're going to make it so you don't have to do all that extra work beforehand. You just take your existing on-premise infrastructure, hybrid it up to multiple different systems, and handle it that way, which is great. So Tamara, go ahead.
Great. The two things about Microsoft Teams is, one, the ability to add distribution lists and modern groups to scheduling meetings. So excited about that, as opposed to inviting everybody individually. That was such a pain. So I'm really glad we'll be able to use distribution lists. And then raising hands in team meetings for the government cloud. This is something that when I was at the city of Minneapolis, we really wish we had, because we were using Teams for our council meetings, boards, and commissions. And it was really hard for the board members and the council members to notify the chair that they wanted to speak. So very excited about that. And it'll also be great for training and using Teams for training, so students can raise their hand and not interrupt the entire operation.
For real. I read something that was funny with another product that had the raising the hand feature. Someone raised their hand when they were called on by the professor. They said they were just stretching.
Awesome.
So moving on to rolling out, we are going to have several things to talk about at rolling out. There's some cool stuff that's coming that we want to spend some time to. Tom, you want to go ahead and kick us off?
I will go ahead and mention the fact for Outlook on the web again, you're going to have the ability to add a personal calendar. So if you have a calendar out on Google Calendar or a personal one out on Outlook.com or something, you can now pull that into your Office 365 account so you can see all your events in one place. And I think that's a cool thing. What they also do, the second item that they have mentioned here, is personal calendar affecting work availability. So when you pull in these items into your work calendar, what it's also doing is like, okay, I understand this is on your personal calendar and it's not actually work related, but I'm going to go ahead and block your free busy time so that if you have something where it's like, hey, I've got a doctor's appointment, it's on my personal calendar, it comes in, that time is going to be blocked off on your work calendar. It's not going to show any details for anybody, so they're just going to see free or available. However, the fact that you don't have to think, oh, well, I got to copy it over to my work calendar and block that out because I'm not going to be here and I need, all this is going to be able to be done automatically. So if you work for an organization that is okay with you bringing in a personal calendar and meshing that, that I think is going to be a huge deal where you can start to integrate your work and life balance there and make sure that you don't have to be managing things in 2 or 3 different spots. So I think that's really cool. Tamara, since you were the one who mentioned the Teams video thing breakout, I thought I would leave the other Teams breakout thing to you.
And this is one of the most wanted features that everyone asks for.
Yeah. Increasing the number of simultaneous videos in team meetings from 4 to 9. I think this is Microsoft trying to get closer to Zoom and being able to do it. This was another concern that we had when we were doing the council meetings and board meetings and commissions meetings with the city of Minneapolis, is we wanted to show all the boards and commissioners at once, and we weren't able to do that. So on the back end during the live meetings, it took a lot on the producer's end to move around whose video was going to be active, as opposed to just having everybody up. Also, chats are now launching, and you'll be able to experience them in a separate window but also they're moving the Meet Now functionality in channels. So it'll be in the ellipse. So it'll be in that drop down now instead of where that button usually
The little
is.
dot. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, the chat's being pulled out is definitely huge. It's kind of funny because if you think about it, the functionality is kind of there in Teams right now where you feel like you can go through and chat with everyone, but just not being able to pull out like separate chat windows and look at them like you could in Skype or any messaging service from the last 20 years. I hear this feedback all the time when I train people on Teams. Like all the time, every company I go to, people talk about like wanting to, oh, well, how do I pull that chat out? How do I get it in its own window? And it's just like, you can't, and everyone's always upset. So
Yeah.
happy to see this one coming. Either of you guys have anything else you wanted to talk about?
I really don't. So go ahead and go for it.
I'm only going to mention one thing. Tamara, do you have anything else?
No.
Cool. So there's a nerdy one, as you guys probably expect from me. So Azure AD Connect cloud provisioning is a fairly cool concept. For any of you guys that handle the identity side of things, Azure AD Connect is the tool that allows you to sync your local Active Directory up to the cloud. Well, basically, we're coming out with this Azure AD Connect cloud provisioning. The idea is basically that you put a whole bunch of lightweight agents across your Active Directory infrastructure. And if you have multiple Active Directories and stuff like that, it's going to give you the power to have one cloud interface that you go through and manage everything through. And when you do that, it provisions it down to all the lightweight interfaces you put out. So this is kind of a reverse type system from what we've seen historically, but this is in the line with what Microsoft has been trying to move forward to do with the idea of putting stuff more into the cloud and more centralized. And as they've gotten better at some of their write back type functionality, we've been seeing this. Nowadays, unless you have some third-party app integration that really needs ADFS, no one's going through and doing ADFS for single sign-on anymore, because all the functionality you could do in single sign-on, you can now get through pass-through authentication, which doesn't require 3 extra servers and, an SSL server and all the extra stuff that would take with it. So it's one of those things I see along those trends. I'm actually really interested to see this in action. The concept of it is really cool to me, and all the stuff that I've seen them release around identity and cloud provisioning has worked well. But I really think this could long-term be a game changer, because it basically lets people still have their local systems in place, but start managing it through the cloud, which you couldn't really do before. The more and more Microsoft can get people doing that, the more the Microsoft Cloud portals just become your home, which is obviously like the $1 million question for them. Part of the reason Windows is so ubiquitous everywhere is because everyone got used to using Windows. So anything else that you did, you put on Windows, and wanted to go do something else, you didn't want to move away from Windows. So if your landing spot for identity starts to become the Microsoft portals in the cloud, they're essentially locking in customers for the long term by doing that. So really interested to see where this is going, but I think it has a lot of potential. So
very cool.
We mentioned this at the start. I'll kind of, let other people do it, but to give you guys an idea, we had 40 either rolling out or launched, or we had 40 rolling out or in development features. We have like 180 in our list this week for launch.
And we've talked about so many of them.
Yeah, a lot of them are actual stuff that we've talked about. What we the best thing we can think is they were doing some own cleanup on their own roadmap, adjusting stuff, fixing the dates, things along those lines. We're typically going through and looking for deltas, looking through changes. So there's a ton of stuff in the launch field. If you guys are interested, you can go through and look at the full list. We'll be sending out our normal things. But if a couple things to just highlight that we think are reminders or stuff that's really cool, we'll kind of go through a couple. So Tom, we let Tamara start first, then we went to you. We'll go ahead and defer to you as a veteran to go ahead and start with another one on launch if you would like.
This is good because I think I can steer clear of her, so that's good. So a couple things that I just wanted to bring forth and remind people of, because I think they're really cool features and we're really starting to get a lot of use out of them. One is for the SharePoint news or pages that you publish, you now have audience targeting available. So what this basically means is that for news articles that you're posting or pages that you're posting, on your web part where you're displaying the news, something like that, in the web part itself, you can enable audience targeting. And what that means is that you can go out there and say, okay, audience targeting, I only want people who are in my Idaho distribution list to see this on the page. And so when you set that and you save it, that means that anything in that web part that is audience targeted for, say, Idaho, will show up for people who happen to be in that distribution list. Since I'm not part of the Idaho distribution list, I would never see it show up in that web part. So you can start to get some personalization going. One of the main things to remember, though, that this is not security, because if you go out to site contents and you look at site pages, you'll still see all the site pages out there and you can get to them. Somebody else may set up a page that says, hey, show me all the news out there. You're going to be able to see it. It's only a way of being able to control what you see on a particular page that has audience targeting turned on. So that's a really cool feature, and especially for like home pages of your internet and stuff like that, just to see things that are applicable to where you might happen to be. The other thing that we noticed crop up here recently, which is really kind of cool if you lived in the SharePoint 2010 world, is SharePoint lists from lists. So it used to be, if you had a SharePoint list, you could save it as a template. You had to then go put it in the template gallery. You had to then make it available to people. They could use it, but then you wanted to go back in and clean it up. And of course, they didn't have the access and level available to do any of that stuff. So it really became something that was a little labor intensive for SharePoint environment admins. Well, now what you can do is you can go out and say, I want to create a new list, and it will let you create that list from an existing list that's out there. So it lists all the sites you have access to. You click on that site, it shows you all the lists that you have. You click on it, and poof, you have a new list with the new name that has the exact same feature set and layout of the list that you selected. So to get kind of the full effect of this, think that, hey, I want to have a design library for project sites, and I want to put all the different kind of lists and libraries that I may need to pick and choose from. Put that together in one of your project site template inventory, whatever you want to call it. And then when you're creating a new site and you say, okay, I need to grab this type of list, this type of list, that type of library, just create them directly from the create list from list, choose the ones you want, and in a matter of like 3 to 5 minutes, you've got an entire custom library or custom site set up that you've picked and chosen from other particular lists that you have out there, and everything is consistent. That is a huge game changer, and it takes us SharePoint admins completely out of the mix, which I absolutely.
Every time I hear list from list, I think it's like a meme. Or
yeah,
a meme.
We can make it that way. We'll see what we can do for the next one next week.
Tamara, how about you?
I've got a couple that I'm kind of excited about. Comments and notifications on non-Office files. So this includes photos, CAD drawings, PDFs. So not just the Office suite anymore, but also some other file types. And the AutoCAD file previewer. So you can actually, it's one of the 320 file types that now have full fidelity previews that are powered by OneDrive and Windows, SharePoint, or Teams. So in any of those environments, you'll have that previewer.
Yeah, I think that's really cool.
I'm sorry, I'm really excited about one other one. But
yeah.
It's Outlook on the web, the option to cancel events from a date forward.
That one is
so
cool.
If you have recurring events, you don't have to wait until the last meeting that you want to have on there is over before you cancel them. I'm so excited about that. Again, I have very few hobbies, and I don't get out much. But I'm very excited about that one.
Well, this is nice for the people who go out and say, hey, I'm going to have this reoccurring meeting and I'm going to create this meeting out through 2037. Why? Because I can. Where now you can say, okay, I don't need to cancel everything. I can say this basically has hit the end of the road by December of this year. Like she said, you'll be able to go out and say, okay, from December forward, cancel all those stupid meetings. We don't need them. but you still have, for reference purposes, everything that you've done prior to that. So yeah, that one is a huge one. I like that one a lot too.
Yeah, so I mean, honestly, I think almost everything else in here we've gone through and talked about before. One of which that's old. It should have been out for a while now, but I don't remember specifically talking about it. I thought was cool was basically caching or remembering questions that users have done in past forms and going through when you start to create a new form, remembering your questions. The people that I've seen really adopt forms the most are the people that routinely have to get that type of information from inside of their organization. So, the administrative assistant that's required to figure out what to get for the lunch meeting that they have every Wednesday, and she always has to send out a survey to people and stuff like that. So oftentimes, unless they committed and created a template, they would be going through and retyping stuff over and over and over and over and over. So the fact that based on the user will remember some of that and prompt you to pull stuff from the past, I think just saves some time. Anything else you guys want to talk about in launch before I go and briefly talk about the canceled section?
I'm good with you.
Yeah, column totals.
Oh,
Column
yes.
totals have rolled out. That's exciting. We used to have those in datasheet views where you would go in and you'd go into SharePoint Designer and you'd create your view and you'd be able to put in the column totals. Now we can do it right within the browser, and also sticky column headers. I am so tired of scrolling back up to the top to see what the columns were named and which column am I on. So having sticky column headers is a big win.
Yeah, whenever I do training on Excel, I'm sure you've done this in one of your tips too, Tom. Showing sticky headers in Excel always blows people's mind that worked in Excel and didn't use it before.
Mm-hmm.
And I promise I will make sure she gets out more this week, so she's a little calmer for our next session.
Yeah, so honestly, besides that, like I said, guys, there's a ton of stuff to launch. A lot of it is stuff we've talked about before, but you can feel free to look at it. There's technically 3 things in canceled, but 2 of them were duplicates. The only thing that's actually been canceled has really just been postponed, not canceled, but it's what they called Office 365 ATP Secure by Default subsection of do not allow for domains that fail authentication. This goes into when you're adding new domains into systems and what you're going through and doing. They basically started moving forward with the idea that if you can't pass authentication, you just can't get anything out of your domain. This makes sense. You can't do this for email anyways, because you could do some bad stuff with email with it, but you need to prove that you can own a domain. But it kind of will still hold it as a placeholder, just pending authentication for some of the stuff. But long story short, people figured out clever ways to then still kind of fish and abuse stuff with domains that weren't really their own in the system. So this was one of the ways they were going through to address it. Well, basically what it comes down to is rather than putting this in the subsection of ATP, they're going through and reworking some of their anti-spam policies. And part of their anti-spam policy reworking is going to be around addressing this whole idea around domains that fail authentication and what you do with them and stuff like that. So rather than canceling it outright, they're basically just moving it to another subsection that really, reading between the lines, is going to be less license driven. So it's probably a good thing for all of us. So that's all that's been canceled. Besides that, guys, it's been a good week. A lot of stuff to review. Again, we're sorry Jen wasn't able to join us, but we will be back next week just as always. And we hope everyone has a good time out there and stays home and stays safe.
Bye, everyone.
Have a good one.